I'm good. I feel very energised, ready to go, roaring to go.
Yeah. We took a break last week. There was no real reason why, to be honest. It was just kind of...
Exhaustion.
It was just... It was our schedule was just mad. Like, I think we were just having like a busy
It's been
week.
like that for months.
We were just having a busy week with like work and the kid and that, and we were just like, I made the call on like the Tuesday afternoon. I was just like, no, I can't get my shit together in time to record. It's not gonna be a good one. But I'm glad we took that week, because during that week I did a lot more research into the Teleri, and I came to the difficult decision that unfortunately Thingol doesn't make the cut as the Teleri elves, because as you'll know from last episode, he reunited his people and they became the Sindar.
Yeah.
So technically they're their own people now, so fuck them.
Yeah.
I'm not covering them under the Teleri.
Oh, so you're now saying that that's going to be another episode?
It'll have to be. It'll have to be. It will. Yeah. So how's your week been? Or how's the last 2 weeks been?
Good.
You've been for a couple of brunches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the people didn't quite get the memo of a bottomless brunch, but
Yeah.
that has meant that I've had one lie-in that was really nice. So, because you made me get up for the first one because I was absolutely fine, and you were like, oh, I haven't slept very well. And I thought, you know what if I had intentionally gone out and thought, I'm going to be sensible so I can enjoy this full sleep and my lie-in tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what you did do, though.
I didn't.
I don't remember it that way.
You did get me to get up, because that was the same week that you'd got me to get up with her quite a few mornings because you were tired.
I don't remember it like that.
You haven't been sleeping very well, so on a morning, even when it's been your morning, you've said a couple of times, do you mind getting up with her because I haven't slept?
There's been once or twice where that's happened, and there's been a couple of times where I've had to go back to bed once you've got
your
up.
memory, you say about my memory, your memory is getting worse.
I would beg to differ.
No.
For anybody who listens back to these episodes, my recall of everything Tolkien.
Yeah,
is quite
Tolkien.
well.
But when it's something to do with who's getting up with the child, you're not going to remember that, are you? It's like you don't remember to do certain things around the house.
It's a hot topic. And
I could text you saying, "Can you put the laundry in the washing machine?" And you'll have forgot to put the laundry in the washing machine when I get home. But you've somehow remembered that 2 weeks ago you said we were going to have pizza on that night, and you remember that without me telling you.
It is a hot topic. I will say that, and one that will ultimately lead to our divorce. But I will say that it is my priority to make sure that we have a house in which to use a washing machine, and provided we still have a roof over our heads.
Yeah, and so do I.
But that being said,
work as well.
That being said, right, you have to treat me a bit like a dog, because you have to classically condition me, because it has been literal years at this point since I last forgot to put the coffee away. Because of that uproar.
Yeah, but that was one thing, and to realise how much effort went into making you put the coffee away, that took years and years and years for you to eventually start putting the coffee away. So how the heck am I meant to do all the other things?
That wrecked my 2019, to be honest.
Stacking the dishwasher?
Right,
Is that going to take you 5 years?
That was one instance.
No, it was not, because I've had to restack that so many times, and I've never said anything because I've thought, no, because he'll just say I'm nagging. But this one time I've said something, you're then saying,
well, why today? Why today then? Why today?
Because I thought, do you know what? He might be in a embracing mood of some sort of change.
I did, and I changed the way I stacked the dishwasher, and it didn't really work. I'm going to be honest with you. I fucked up this, right? Because I made rice for our tea, and it just did not. None of the meal went the way I planned it to. I put the chicken in the slow cooker this morning, made my own barbecue sauce. It was fucking beautiful, by the way. My kid loved it. I loved it. Becca didn't love it. That's by the by. It was chicken on the bone, so it was a brown meat. Like, you know, it's always a toss up. But I put the chicken, and I read like the side of the packet said put the chicken in the sieve because we're on poverty rice because it's a fucking cost of living crisis, right? None of this like microwave shit. It's like we're in the pan rice age. And
we don't have a microwave. That's why we've got pan rice.
Yeah, exactly. Because
because
fault.
you won't get a microwave because you broke the microwave, and then I said,
right,
we need to buy a new microwave, and you said, no, we don't need a microwave. I was like, how are we going to do beans? You were like, do them in the pan.
I still maintain we don't need one, but please let me finish. This is a confession. I need to get this off my chest, right? I fucked up tea tonight. I put the rice. I didn't put it in a sieve. I couldn't find the sieve. I put it in the colander.
Yeah. So it went through the holes.
It did. So, but the worst thing was, right, it normally wouldn't do that. Like the weight at a certain point would just keep it in the colander. But I was running water through it. So like the water was just forcing it out at the bottom of the colander. And I was like, and I had to keep adding more rice.
You're telling me
So I was adding more rice to the colander, and it was just going down the fucking sink. And then I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So I put it into the pan. There was rice everywhere. There was rice in the colander. I cooked the rice. I cooked tea. That was fine. I ate it. But then when I went back into the kitchen, there was like fucking rice everywhere. Like I dropped like bits of barbecue sauce. Like there was a bone that I'd accidentally dropped, and I'm glad the dog didn't eat it because obviously like cooked bones is different. And anyway, but I was like, right, I need to do a quick whip round, so I put everything in the dishwasher. And I was like, there's going to be some rice in there, but I'm just going to have to make do with it. But then I fucked it up even more, and the dishwasher there was more and more shit in there. So I was like, right, I'm going to the off-limits bit. So I went to the top shelf, and I put, right, and I'm sorry for everyone who has a dishwasher, you'll know the heinous sin I've committed here. I put the bowls where the cups go, but then I went a step further, and I put the wide, shallow bowl over the top of the deeper bowl. And I knew in my heart that when that water jet squirted up and started to clean it might not get it all. It might get the big bits, but it wouldn't get it all. So then my plan was, if Becca doesn't notice, I'll be the one who does the dishwasher in the morning because it's me getting up with the baby.
No, you're not that quick.
No, exactly. I thought, right, I'll just fix it in the morning. I'll do another load. It's just I cannot deal with it right now. It was the end of the day and I was tired. And you found me. You fucking found me out.
The thing is, though,
you found me out, and I hold my hands up, right?
No,
for the sake of our marriage, I hold my hands up. I fucked up the dishwasher.
If we weren't recording right now,
but this
conversation would have gone so differently. You would not have narrated like that because you would just not have listened to me. You would have just walked off. But I'm just going to say something really funny here, right?
This is whenever you say I just think it's funny, or isn't it funny? It's never funny.
So
you're about to say something mean.
No. So the water would not have even touched the little bowl inside the big bowl, right? Because you then obviously must have proceeded to put a pan on the bottom shelf over where the water spurts up. So it would have just hit the pan and not cleaned a lot of the things in the dishwasher.
Right, I'm not an underwater ceramics expert. Shout out to Jono. I'm not an underwater ceramics expert, right? So I don't know where the water comes out in the dishwasher. I'm not a water engineer. No, I know where the filter is, but I don't know where it comes out. It must go everywhere.
My Lord.
It must go everywhere. Else how would it clean the things in the water? But speaking of water, welcome back to A Drunk History Middle Earth. This week we're covering part 2 of the Teleri elves, who are the elves who love the sea, perhaps a little bit more than every other type of elf. Now, last episode we ended with Círdan stood basically on the western shores of Beleriand.
The shipbuilder.
Aye, Círdan the shipbuilder. The ship, right, but he built ships, you are right. And he became the head of the is it the Falathrim, I think? Or the Falmari? No, it was the Falmari who went west. I think it was the Falathrim who stayed with Círdan. He became their lord because the Valar had told him, you'll come west eventually, but it's not now, you've got things to do, son. And he went, alright then. And that was where, we also mentioned that Elwë woke up from his sleep. Do you know where him and Melian were staring at each other for 200 years or so? Yeah. He reunited his peoples, he reunited his peoples, not in a homophobic sense.
No, I mean honestly, you silly sausages. That, like, is in the happy, in, like,
Yeah.
cute way.
No, it was. Yeah, it was merry gay, as Tolkien would
Yeah.
describe it. But speaking of which, I saw a hilarious. I sent it to Sandy. It was a hilarious comment someone had left on Instagram, where it was someone kicking off with like a company, and then and they were just being a pure dick. And one of the comments was, "He needs to go back to the pond if he's going to be such a silly goose." It's just tickled me fucking pink. So all week I've just been thinking,
You silly goose.
yeah, just like you silly goose. But it's always in this really camp voice in my head. Like, it's never like you silly goose. It's just, oh, you silly goose. Oh, anyway, but yeah. What do you remember of last episode? Like, what do you remember about the Teleri?
They are the ones that started the journey and got and I can't remember.
No, like yeah. They started the great journey. They were the one. They were the
They just
dawdlers.
kind of like went here, there, and everywhere, and
Yeah.
took ages.
Oh, they took fucking ages to
and
do
were,
everything.
like, populating and stuff.
Yes, so we had a big section about like the elves breeding
Sexy
and
time, yeah.
yeah, because these elves were they were the most numerous
They
at
were
the
enjoying
beginning.
the lands.
Aye, they were enjoying the fruit of the lands on their loins, but because they were the most numerous group at the start, they had the biggest population, and they were just the pure fucking dawdlers. Aye, but yeah, so we ended with Círdan on the shores of Beleriand, Thingol waking up, and we're going to pick up with the lads who did leave, or the lads and lasses who did leave, under Olwe, who is Elwë's brother. I'm pretty sure it's his brother. Yeah, so they were the elves who got on the island of Tol Eressëa first. So you remember that the Noldor and the Vanyar went across first because they got to the shores first, and Ulmo was like blowing his big foghorn. He was like, honk honk, get on. And they went off like a ferry. Well, it was a ferry. And then once they got to Aman, Ulmo dragged the island back across the sea, and half of the Teleri got pretty much like half of the Teleri got on, and a lot of them stayed behind because some wanted to look for.
And they were being loyal.
They were loyal. Some wanted to look for Elwë, who was just lost in the forests, and some just weren't there yet. They were still fucking dawdling, and that was it. Aye. So yeah. So today though, we're going to continue the story with the elves who did make it across the sea, and these were the Falmari, who were led by Olwe. But big but.
You've got a big butt.
I've got a big butt. I cannot lie. They didn't go straight to Aman. It's never that straightforward. Not with the Teleri. They stopped off the coast of Aman, and they said to Ulmo, "Look, pal, can you pull over? A few of us are feeling seasick." And Ulmo did, and so that's where they lived for many years, and they lived in a place called the Bay of Eldamar, which is the bay. It's a big bay just off the coast of Aman. And
So they genuinely felt ill?
No. But they stopped the island because, do you remember their pal Osse, the Maya, who taught them how to build ships?
Yeah.
He called to them once they reached, because remember his coastal waters?
Yeah.
So it'll be once they reached the coastal waters of Aman, he called to them again. He was like, "I'm your friend, like, stop, like, be with your friend," because he loves the Teleri. He loves sailors, right? We discussed it last time that he's the only Maiar who went evil and then came back.
Yeah.
And he loves mariners, and the Teleri are the best mariners, right? And he wants to be the pal. So the Teleri beg Ulmo to stop the island, and Ulmo does. And you might wonder, like, well, Ulmo's a Valar, and they said that elves had to go to Aman, so what the fuck? Why is he stopping it? But Ulmo was one of the Valar who kind of like voted against bringing the elves to Aman. Not for any like bad reason, but mainly he just thinks that like he thought they should have stayed in Middle Earth because it was a beautiful place. Like that was their place, and they should have stayed there because the Valar only brought them over to protect them from Melkor. Remember?
Yeah.
Middle Earth, the whole of Arda was meant for the children of Iluvatar. So what Ulmo did was he got, and I always find this fascinating, the idea of this, because we live on an island, right? We live in Great Britain, which is an island, and I never think of it as being like fastened to the seabed. Like, I feel like you could just push an island, but Tolkien goes to pains to point out that Ulmo gets Osse to fasten the island to the seabed so that it can't be moved.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's just a holdover from when I was a kid. Like, I always thought that islands could just
I still do, to be honest.
You think they could just be moved.
Well, I don't believe that, obviously, but in your brain, the initial, if someone did a quick fire and said, "Do islands float?" You'd be like, "Yeah," and then you'd be like, "No."
Yeah, you're right.
No.
If you go far, if you
don't.
go to South Shields or North Shields or it's one of the closest beaches to us, you go to South Shields and you just swim far enough offshore, you can swim under England.
Yeah.
Just pop up on the other side.
It actually, that's making me feel a bit sick, because it's reminding me of those videos of photographers who go underneath sheets of ice.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then pop up out of like a hole, and just imagining getting nah.
Yeah, there is people who do that, don't there? That do. Alright, but the Valar were not best pleased with Ulmo's actions, and surprisingly, there was a few elves who weren't pleased with this either. One was Finwë, who was the leader of the Noldor, and it's out of love. He was just really, really good friends with Olwe, and he missed him, and which I think is really nice. Like, he missed his mate. Like, they wouldn't see each other for a long time. Because even though elves are immortal, like, you think, yeah, you've got all that life, but you also have all, like, the big thing about the elves is that they'll carry their sorrow for pretty much forever as well.
Yeah.
Now, this comes to the bit, right? I'm part of a Discord server that's called the Fellowship of the Readers or something like that. And it's a very good community of people, right? And they do like Tolkien read-alongs, and they do trivia quizzes, which I joined 1 and 1, which I was very happy about. Shout out to me. But it's a very good place where I can go and nerd out amongst other nerds. And this question came up, and I'd like to know anybody's opinion who listens to this. I'm assuming that the Teleri built the city on Tol Eressëa that's called Avalone. It's referred to in the Downfall of Númenor, which is in the end of the Second Age, because it said that the Númenorians could see the city of Avalone, like the white tower on Tol Eressëa. However, I don't think Avalone, this city on Tol Eressëa, on this island, it's not mentioned prior to the Downfall of Númenor, which is set after the events of the Silmarillion. So I'm assuming the Teleri might have built it, but there's also evidence maybe that, so after, the War of Wrath, where Beleriand gets fucked up and a lot of the elves leave to go west, but some go east, and like Galadriel and that go east. Well, a lot of the Noldor go to Tol Eressëa first before they go back to Aman, like a way to like ease them back into it, because they've done a lot of bad shit by this point. And maybe it might have been then that they built it, but I'm not quite sure. So yeah, I'm just a bit. There's no real confirmed writings about who built Avalone, so unless I'm missing something, it's interesting. But this city had a big harbour, which is very handy considering everybody loved boats. But do you remember the Palantirs from the films? Do you know where the stone where Sauron reads Pippin's mind and finds out he knows fuck all? Yeah. That's where the Master Stone lives. The one Palantir to rule them all. It's good for navigating things. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I was a little bit sad because I thought we weren't going to have much of a language section this week, but there's a little one. But actually, I want your input in a second, because I think you might know a bit more about this than me. But Avalone is from Middle Quenya. That's not the bit I need your input in, which means outer island. So Avalone means Ava means outer, and Lone means island. But this is where I'd like your input, because I don't know Arthurian legends. But apparently, for anyone familiar with King Arthur, it's a direct nod to Avalon.
Well, I did think it sounded... It was weird. I didn't say anything, but at first when you said it, I thought, finally a word that feels familiar or like it is a genuine... Like a Spanish word. It sounds nice.
Yeah, so it's Avalon, which is apparently it's a mythical island where King Arthur goes to recover from his wounds after the Battle of Camlan. No, I don't know if I'm reading that right. And it's also where his sword Excalibur was allegedly made. I don't know anything, I'm afraid, about King Arthur. Maybe did Lancelot fuck his wife?
I'm a bit rough.
Did he fuck Lancelot's wife? There was a round table.
There was a sword in the stone.
There was a round table. Did that table have a leaf for Christmas?
And there was a wizard with a big blue hat and stars on it.
That's Gandalf. Or Merlin. Or Dumbledore.
And there was an owl.
An owl?
An owl.
Yeah, so, that's that. I don't really know a great deal about King Arthur. It's interesting because there's always that legend that he'll come back when England needs him most. Or, I don't know whether it's like Great Britain would need him most, because I'm pretty sure a lot of his shit was in Wales.
The thing is that we have so many kings and queens in our country. And we also know a lot about Scottish kings and queens as well.
Yeah, like Robert the Bruce.
That it's not uncommon for you to not know a lot about one of them because there are so many.
Yeah,
like we
true.
can't be specialists in all of the kings and queens of Britain.
No, true.
There will be someone out there.
There's that Horrible History song where they sing them all.
Yeah,
That's really good.
Yeah.
So
Shout out Horrible History.
Yeah, we know you're listening. I've always said that would make me a monarchist if a king or queen came back that would actually like lead us into battle. Like I've said to you multiple times before Queen Elizabeth died, I've said I'd look at you right in the eye and I'd say, Becca, if Big Liz jumped on a horse and charged into battle in Iraq, I'd fucking follow her.
Yeah.
And I've said that. Like, if I could have someone to follow like that. So if King Arthur comes back, like, you'll have my sword.
I bet he will.
Hey, that's King Arthur you're talking about. But we digest. Tolkien wrote about this. So Avalone is that Bilbo and Frodo get their own Arthurian ending. So that's another nod to like our to like English mythology or British mythology. So by going to a mythical island at the end of their story where they can heal after their battles, that's Bilbo and Frodo getting their Arthurian ending, and likewise Sam and Gimli, and whoever else ends up there. Because like Legolas and Gandalf would go to Teleri before they went on to the Undying Lands, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's but Tolkien again he hints at it by saying that passing west is where they can rest and heal, and that's why they end up at Teleri. But again, we jump back into the main story, which is about the Teleri, and that's where the Teleri stopped for ages and ages and ages. It's never explicitly stated how long they stayed there, but it was long enough that their language became its own language. It was sundered. It became different to the Noldor and the Vanyar who lived in Aman.
Don't you dare start talking loads of rubbish.
I don't know.
Don't you teach me about another language.
Unfortunately, I don't know much Teleri.
Good.
Or Telerin. I don't even know what the language is called.
Good.
Lindarin? That sounds like a good one. Because they were called the singers, the Lindar, so it might be Lindarin. Aye, but they stayed there until they yearned to see the other elves who were there, the Noldor and the Vanyar. And they wanted to see Aman proper. So I want to paint a picture for you, is that you live in your city, or your hut's on the beach, wherever the fuck you live, like on Teleri, absolute bliss, and every day you look west. But all you can see is a big wall of mountains, the Pelori Mountains, that the Valar raised, do you remember, to protect them from Melkor?
Yeah.
They raised mountains across the whole thing. But they only allowed one delve in a valley. Actually, if you look at the
I remember.
wallpaper that I've got on now, it's similar to that, except that's Thangorodrim, but...
You nerd.
Yeah, but yeah, so, and the reason for that is that was to allow the light of the trees to get out, and to allow the air to come in. And this this mountain pass, was the only way through to Amman from the outside world, like just coming directly west unless you went super fucking north. And it was called Kalakirya, or Kalakirya, which means light cleft. And it's very easy for us to break that down because we've done an episode. No, we didn't. We did an episode on the Vanya, who are Kalakwendi, light elves. So Kala means light, and Kirya means cleft. So let me get in that Kirya. Let me get in your Kirya. Kirya. Anyway, but this mountain pass was apparently very beautiful. It was covered in jewels.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm on board
I
now.
know, right? Yeah, it was also at later years it was chock full of towers and guards and that. So even though it was a mountain pass, you still wouldn't be able to directly assault it because of just how much like stuff was there. And this was in case Melkor came. You know? But because of that, so what they do is it was covered in jewels. So when the light hit it, just brilliant radiance. Yeah, just brilliant radiance. And I thought it was interesting here. The Valar purposefully did like Kalakirya because even the Vanya, do you remember the goodest of boys and girls, right? Mm-hmm. The golden retrievers of the elves.
Yeah.
They still needed to breathe like the air of the world, like the fresh air from like Middle Earth and the sea and stuff. And it comes back to that like there's that eldritch quality of Amman, like the light is so bright that it burns you out. So like even though the elves are immortal, it could still get overwhelming for them, like to live in such brilliance. Which I thought was pretty like, whoa, what the fuck? So yeah, even the Vanya needed to go occasionally and just breathe outside air.
It's not as if like it's a whole different planet with a different atmosphere.
Yeah, no,
it's the same planet almost.
It is, but it is, but I think it's the it's the living nearest to the Valar. Like their light, their pure spirit, it burns you out. Like we know that if a mortal went to Amman, they die very quickly.
So the Valar burn off the atmosphere.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like that. Do you know the biblical angels about like being too beautiful to look upon? And it's like wheels within wheels of fire and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's that. It's just being exposed. It's the light is too bright for the moth, pretty much. So but I never thought I'd spend this long talking about a mountain pass. But here we are. So whilst they were on Tol Eressëa, their pal Ossë helped them build loads more ships, better ships than any of the Philathrim had. Oh, and this bit is, we're going to get sad in a little bit. We've got a little while before we get there. So with these ships, they sailed across the Bay of Eldamar to the coast, and there they settled for good. On the coast, they still love the sea, that's not going to change. But at least you're on the same continent, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I've got a friend in France, so I'm going to go to Calais.
Germany.
Calais, Rebecca. Calais.
You said continent? At least they're on the same continent.
Yeah, but I'm on the coast of where I need to be. So like,
Germany's in the same continent?
right, okay, I've got a friend in Paris, so I'm going to live in Calais.
Okay.
Yeah, you feel me?
What about Dover?
That's in England. That's British. David Walliams can swim that channel. I don't think I can. I struggle with like 20 lengths.
What's the other one called? What's the other
Calais?
port?
Dover and Calais.
But what's the
Rotterdam.
other one?
Are you thinking of Rotterdam?
No.
Oh, fuck knows. I have no idea what you're on about.
Where did the boats go up during the war? Where did
Normandy?
Normandy. That's what I was going for.
Oh.
Don't know where. Yeah.
I don't know if it was a port.
Oh, right. Okay.
I mean, hundreds of ships were there,
but it's a pretty place.
But they were there for a fucking reason.
Yeah.
They weren't there to drop it. Well, they were there to drop people off.
Normandy just sounds very it sounds more exotic.
Yeah, fair dues. Yeah, when you're right, you're right. So they sailed across the windless Bay of Eldamar. It's windless.
Ooh, eerie.
And they settled there on the coast for good, and they built their city, which was Alqualonde, and it's known as the greatest city of the Teleri. And there's certain things in Tolkien that make me yearn for more and more artwork. and Alqualonde is one of them. It's described as the streets are covered in gems, but it's all like piers and quiet streets and lamps, and that's what really like
ornate shit.
it's like, yeah, but it makes me think there'd be loads of cafes there on a night, like Parisian cafes or like Venice or something.
Cosmopolitan.
Just absolutely beautiful, but like quiet and lit with lamps, which just sounds beautiful. And then you could go for a stroll down to the pier and see the ships. And this city was built with the mate of the Teleri, Finwë, who was the High King of the Noldor, who we haven't covered yet, but again, names are popping up more and more that appear in later stories or you've covered before, like because again we mentioned it's a whole tapestry, it's a history.
Yeah.
And Finwë, I'll put this bit in just to annoy you actually. Finwë is the High King of the Noldor, and he is the father of 3 sons and 2 daughters. And I want you to repeat these back to me. His sons are Fëanor, Fingolfin, Finarfin, his daughters Findis and Irme.
Fëanor, Fingolfin and Finwë. Oh.
No.
Fëanor, Fingolfin and Finarfin.
Yeah, and his daughters are...
Fae and...
No. Findus crispy pancakes.
I don't know.
Findis and Irme.
I was quite chuffed with remembering 3. Thank you very much.
I don't know why, but again,
especially when you said them that fast.
I've had one of those moments again in the last couple of weeks where, do you know, something just kind of clicks for you again?
Yeah.
And it was these names. It was knowing that Fëanor, Fingolfin and Finarfin are Finwë's kids. And
hey, how would you know?
It's just reading it over and over again. It's just like I said, I'm like I've got to classically condition myself. So I had a chocolate every time I read the name.
Pavlov's dog.
Yeah. And and then his daughter's called Findis, and the other daughter's called Irme. So Irme is the oldest daughter as well, but she's not the oldest child. So what the fuck? Why did he just call it Irme? What a dick move! He didn't even stick with Finn.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Finesme, you could have done.
Oh god, yeah. Alqualonde, I've got here is one of the places I'd want to live in Middle Earth. Like everyone always has this discussion, like where would you want to live? And a lot of people say like the Shire, Rohan, blah blah blah. Alqualonde, because I love ships. I love the sea, so that would be mint. And it had a natural rock harbour, just like water deep for the D&D fans amongst us. And it had massive walls, and it had a huge arch made of living rock. Now I went away and researched this because I've always read it. For some reason in my head, living rock just meant coral. I don't know what. I don't know why. I think I read once that coral like grows or something. It's like coral's like an organism.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Is it? Is it? Oh, wicked. All right, cool. So when it said living rock, I was like, oh, is that just a way to describe coral? Because I was like, sea, coral. Like, makes sense. You just made an arch out of coral. But no, it's an architectural term, which I did not know. And
which means?
Living rock is an aspect of something called rock-cut architecture. And that means you build and construct from the rock as it naturally occurs, instead of bringing rock from a quarry and building that way. So you take what's there and you work it as it is. So when you see things like built into mountains or into the hillsides and stuff like that,
yeah,
it's that. So that's still equally impressive.
And like, so would stone walling be classed as that? Because they don't really, they just get like a boulder, don't they? And then they put another boulder on, and another boulder. Is it like that?
I don't know. I'm thinking more along the lines of natural pillars in caves.
Oh, right, okay.
Do you know where you build the room, but then you build around the pillars, so the pillars naturally are supporting the roof? Like when we went to Cheddar Gorge, there was a few like that.
We need confirmation.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking with rock cut architecture.
Rock cut.
Yeah, Jamie, pull that up. But yeah, the city sounds absolutely beautiful. It was covered in pearls, because they come from the sea. And it was covered in jewels, which were gifts from the Noldor, who fucking loved mining and quarrying for gems. And there was a beautiful tower. In my head, I think it was a lighthouse. just with them being so close to the sea and what have you, I just think anytime you mention a tower, it's probably going to be a lighthouse.
Right. Let's just confirm this. Right. So, examples are the Temple of Karnak. I would say... what's it called?
Is the Temple of Karnak the one with the people sat on the thrones?
Yeah.
So that's all built from the rock?
Yeah. So
Fucking hell.
Yeah. But it's with the same material. I was getting confused.
Yes, so wow. So you're just using what's there, or are you cutting into the side of something?
No, actually. Wait. So, it's not the Temple of Karnak. It's Abu Simbel.
Right.
That's where it's the seated pharaohs.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
And I was also thinking of Petra, the ancient city of Petra, where...
Yes.
So it's using the rock and carving into, like... So you'd carve into a face of rock.
Yeah.
To create the structure.
Ah, is that like Mount Rushmore then? In America?
Yes.
That sounds like that. Like they didn't bring stuff there. They
That's
didn't quarry
exactly
it.
it.
Yeah. All right, well, yeah, you've learned this week. I've learned this week. We've all learned this week, I hope.
Yeah.
If there's any architects listening, though, then...
Sorry.
I'm sorry you missed out on that nugget of knowledge, but, you know, I'm sure you can cry into your commission for your buildings. Aye. And like I mentioned, anytime you mention a tower in a city with people near the sea, I'm going to think lighthouse, right? Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, technically Blackpool Tower's built on the sea. Like, that's right on the seaside.
Yeah,
that's not a lighthouse.
But that's a pretty... Well, it was a very rare thing to have, was a tower by the coast.
Oh, yeah, true.
There's not many that exist still, even.
Yeah.
The Eiffel Tower was like the first example
Statue
of
of Liberty's one I can think of. But that's not a lighthouse, is it?
No. They're more like features that are pretty instead of
true.
aesthetically pleasing, whereas a lighthouse has a purpose.
Yeah, true. But anyway, we digest. The Alqualonde was where the ships lived, like the best ships. And these were their pride and joy. And these ships were called the Swan ships and named, you know, exactly what it says on the tin. They were built in the likeness of swans, and they had golden beaks and eyes of gold and jet. And truly spectacular craftsmanship. And it was here that Olwe and his elves lived happily for years and years and years and years. And as the Teleri elves were also the Lindar, the singers, the city was one of the most tranquil and beautiful places to have ever existed, with elven singing floating around in the streets. Which, again, all I'm thinking of is Venice at night, lovely cafes, and just some cunt rolling up and down singing. And I'm not going to do any of the singing because all I can think about is that pizza song. So
It was just...
don't you sing. I'm fucking sick of you singing on this podcast. Get a recording deal if you want to sing.
Right, do you know what? Shut your face.
I can see it in your eyes.
What I was going to say was, it all sounded beautiful until you used the word cunt, and it just ruined it.
Oh, I apologise.
Yeah.
I cunted it up. Sorry.
That's just my life, really.
Cunted your life
You
up.
think it's all going well, and then all of a sudden Christopher comes in and does a massive fart, and you just think, this is my life.
Well, I'm never going to meet any women from this podcast now, thank you. Fucking hell. Jesus. I could hear fannies all over the world drying up here and that.
Oh, man.
Dicks are shrivelling. Teats are hardening. Right, okay, so basically, Venice, the best part of Venice, best part of Paris, all the good shit, all the cafes, beautiful singing, tranquil as hell. And Tolkien couldn't just leave it alone because it didn't last. And I hate this. It didn't last. The Teleri elves spotted Melkor when he did his bad thing and he killed the trees, right?
Yeah.
And he fled north with the great spider Ungoliant, and they headed towards Almaran and the Helcaraxi to Middle-earth at Lamoth.
Yeah.
and they had to go past Alqualonde, and they saw this dark shadow moving past. Also, like, what the fuck is it with... There's Aman, right? And there's Almaran. And it's just a Mario and Wario shit. Like, some of these names are so similar that, like, Tolkien must have just been like...
Yeah, so you're starting to get...
Fuck these people.
Are you starting to get why I hate all the language?
Don't hate it. It's beautiful. Appreciate it.
No, I hate it because it's all too similar. It's hard to remember.
Nah, it's not. Well, it is. It absolutely is. Else this podcast wouldn't exist. And this is to bring it in an easy way. But the trees were killed and darkness fell over the world. Okay? Eventually, Feanor started to stir up trouble away in Valinor, in Tirion. And he did it by torchlight. He made a very big speech to the other elves about how the Valar were bad and they were trying to keep them from Middle Earth, etc., etc. But Feanor's a Noldor, so again, it's his own story. We're not quite there yet. Suffice to say that this mischief stirred up a lot of elves into wanting to leave alongside Feanor. And so eventually it was decided that Feanor would lead his people to Alqualonde, and he'd convince Olwe, with his legendary Riz, as the kids say now, to give him ships and people to sail them and take them to Middle-earth. And this didn't go to plan, though. Right? This didn't go to plan. Osse's the Maya. Olwe wanted no part in these fucking shenanigans. Right? It's like, right, when your mate phones you and you know they've had a drink and they'll say something like, "Oh, let's go and book a holiday," and you're like, "Slow down, bud. Let's talk about this when you're sober." Olwe was that friend, and Feanor accused him of being a bad friend to the Noldor, and said that, "Well, we're not friends anymore if you won't come to Kazakhstan with me to go kayaking at 3 a.m. Like, it's just, do you know that like shitty move of like, oh, and you know, you're not my friend, and then he pulled the next one, which
party
is
pooper.
Very predictable. Every party needs a pooper. That's why we invited you, party pooper. But then he pulled the next one, which you can see coming from a mile off. For any dickhead you've ever been friends with, you'd be nothing without us or without me. And he said that the Teleri would still be in huts on the beach if the Noldor hadn't helped them build Alqualonde. Which just... I know there's a lot of people who say like Feanor did nothing wrong or that he's a tragic character, but I genuinely just don't see how. And Olwe clapped back with something we could all bear in mind if we're ever in these situations with our friends. And Olwe said, and I quote, "We renounce no friendship, but it may be the part of a friend to rebuke a friend's folly. And when the Noldor welcomed us and gave us aid, otherwise then you spoke. In the land of Aman we were to dwell forever, as brothers whose houses stand side by side. But as for our white ships, those you gave us not. We learned not that craft from the Noldor, but from the lords of the sea, and the white timbers we wrought with our own hands, and the white sails were woven by our wives and daughters. Therefore we will neither give them nor sell them for any league of friendship. For I say to you, Feanor, son of Finwë, that these are to us as the gems of the Noldor, the work of our hearts." Which, that's a reasonable response. Like, no, we're not bad friends. You're just being fucking stupid. No, you can't have my ships. You didn't make them. You had nothing to do with that. And you helped us build things as friends. Like, don't be a dick. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it sounds perfectly rantish argument. Two lovers. I've seen it all on Jeremy Kyle before. That's the type of behaviour you get, isn't it?
Does any part of you think that always should have helped Feanor?
No.
Yeah.
No?
No.
I probably, maybe it's a year ago, or maybe it's before we had our child, I'd probably say, oh yeah, you know. But now I'm just like, nah, fuck yeah.
Yeah? Why is that?
Just because you learn that let people do their thing and just let me have my peace. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Leave me be. I will have no part. If I don't agree in something, I don't agree. You either like it or you don't. If you don't like it, bugger off with your own ships.
Yeah, fair. Do you know what? Yeah, 100% agree with you there.
It's called self-preservation.
Fëanor didn't like that though. And he left Alqualonde. And for anyone who wants a visual representation, there's a meme I made months ago of that a guy just going, do you know that guy who's like, hey, what are you doing? He goes, me? Nothing. Just hanging around.
Yeah.
And it's that was Fëanor left Alqualonde and waited alone outside of their walls. And he waited until his forces were all marshalled, and his group of Noldor, because there was multiple groups of Noldor being led by different people, but they were all generally leaving. And it was when his group of Noldor caught up with him and were ready that he ordered them to just take the ships by force. The Teleri, understandably, very annoyed by this, but they didn't escalate the violence. The Noldor were resisted, and were a lot of them were thrown into the harbour, and they were thrown into the water, but they didn't intentionally kill anybody. It was, what are you doing, you absolute lunatics? Get off our fucking boats. And if they wouldn't leave, they just threw them overboard, right?
Yeah.
But then the Noldor drew their swords, and so the Teleri drew their bows, and thus begins an event which you've heard of in passing, known as the kinslaying. This is the first kinslaying, and the fact that just like saying to a time traveler,
like Civil War.
Well, it was just imagine saying to someone in 1916. Fuck me. All right, Chris. No history. Imagine saying to someone in 1913, "Oh, has World War One started yet?" And they'd be like, "What the fuck do you mean one?" So the fact that I've got to say the first kinslaying is not very nice, but this was the first kinslaying. And the Teleri were defending themselves, but many were killed on both sides. 3 times the Noldor were driven back, and the fight was all over the streets and the piers and the quays of Alqualonde. And 3 times the Noldor were driven back, and they might have defended themselves, right? Things might have went differently. But a group of Noldor led by an elf called Fingon came up from the rear, and they were leading a big host of Fingolfin, who was Fëanor's half-brother. And to them, they get to Alqualonde, and they see, to them, it looks like the Teleri are fighting and killing the Noldor for no reason. And maybe it's going through his head, and a lot of the elves thought this, have the Valar put them up to this to stop us from leaving? Oh my god, Fëanor was right. Holy shit, we've got to fight for our survival. And so, without understanding what was actually going on, Fingon ordered his vanguard to attack. And that sealed the victory for the Noldor. And a great many of the best sailors to ever live were killed there that day in Alqualonde. And it was good that they did. It was surprising they did as well as they did, because the Noldor had been making weapons for ages, and a lot of it was in secret.
So the Teleri were unprepared.
The Teleri were fighting with it's described as slender bows. They were fighting with slender bows and rocks a lot of the time, and the Noldor had like swords and that. So, you know,
Are you gonna cry right now?
I feel like crying. It really
Never
gets.
seen so much passion.
You have. It gets to me. Like it's just such a sad story. And so the surviving Teleri saw the Noldor pull away in their white swan ships. Again, the best things they'd ever built. Elves love crafting. They love doing stuff, right? And they'd put their heart into these things. The best things they'd ever made. And they see them pull away and row them away up the coast. But the Noldor had to stick to coastal waters because they couldn't sail them. They don't know how to sail. That's why they went to the Teleri instead of making their own ships.
Yeah.
And so, because of this heinous crime, a big event occurs because of this, which is directly... So because of the Teleri being killed...
Does a Maiar get involved?
A Valar gets involved.
Good.
Because of this crime, there is something that's known as the Curse of Mandos, which is where a great figure, a dark figure, stands on a mountainside nearby and calls down to the Noldor and the other elves that are with them, that the Noldor would meet misery and failure for their crimes. And I'm not going to do the whole thing because it is a full prophecy, but because of their crimes, they would meet misery and grief in everything that they attempted. And because of this, some of the Noldor repented and turned back, and they were allowed to go back. And they, for me, they were the smart ones.
Mm.
They were dumb for leaving, but they were smart for going back. And Olwe, seeing what had happened to his people, so Olwe's the leader of the Teleri, he cries out for help from his pal Osse, and Osse is refrained from helping. He can't, because, you know, like, I remember saying last episode that Osse likes to stir up coastal waters.
Yeah.
You know, and causes the storms because of like that little
That's
bit of
why I
darkness in him.
thought he might get involved.
Yeah. But the Valar had actually forbidden the Maiar or any other Valar from helping or hindering the Noldor leaving by force. Like, they weren't allowed to interfere. Because when we do the Noldor, we'll come to it, but the Valar were very sad for them to go because they saw what grief would come of it. And Feanor was just too prideful. But this is an interesting turn of events because do you remember Wainin, Osse's wife?
Yes.
She's do you know the Maiar she brought him back to the side of good? He went evil.
Oh, right, okay.
And it was because of his wife that he was able to come back to good. And she loved the Teleri as well, right? And she wept a great many tears for the fallen mariners. But she wept so much that her tears caused a storm in the sea. So she didn't use force, it wasn't anything like that. But she cried so much that it caused a storm, a big storm. And the Noldor don't know how to sail and they didn't know what to do. And because of this, many of the swan ships were wrecked and a lot of the Noldor were drowned. So... yeah. Another
Gotcha, bitch. I would just be like sat just like this.
Was it Nero who played his fiddle while Rome burned?
Yeah, I would just be like, well, told you so.
Well, there's another point.
I can build more ships. Can't create any more elves to replace them bugalogs.
Well, they can. The prolific shaggers,
well, yeah,
all
but
of them.
not those like these like original elves that are
true.
so skillful and like the
True.
the peak of like they have been created to be the peak to carry on a great bloodline and all this.
So prior to the kinslaying, the kinslaying is such a big deal because no elves had been killed by other elves before, and no elves had been killed in Aman before, except one, and that was Finwë. Feanor's dad had been killed when Melkor was stealing the Silmarils and running away to Middle-earth. So this is a massive, massive, massive deal for everybody. And we're nearly at the end of the Teleri story, you know.
Blimey.
Yeah. There's a couple more bits, and that's that once and this is to do with the ships, and this is egregious. Once Feanor and his gang reached Middle-earth eventually in the ship, so they had to go right up to the north and around. So they stayed to the coastal waters all the way, and there was a little land bridge, the Helcaraxi, to Middle-earth, so they had to go up and around, and they stayed coastal the whole time. And they got to a place called Losgar in Lamoth, and Lamoth is the same place that Melkor had landed in Middle-earth. And so Feanor, Feanor had took his gang of Noldor in the ships. They just left without saying anything to the other Noldor, leaving them to have to go across the ice, which resulted in a lot of deaths. Feanor again. And instead of sending the ships back, Feanor ordered them to be burned because he considered the other Noldor as nothing more than baggage. And again, his hubris would be his downfall, surprisingly. But again, those swan ships, the beautiful swan ships with the beaks of gold and their eyes of golden jet, and the likeness of swan wrought from white timber, were burned. And there is a story, or a theory, that in a certain version of events, one of Feanor's sons was accidentally left in the ship while it burned and he died. But it doesn't quite match up with the published Silmarillion. But in certain events, people think that's hinted at. I think it was like Amrod or Amras. I'm not really sure which one.
That sounds like that. What's he called again? The sounds like the type of thing he would do.
Oh, Denethor.
Yeah.
Right, Becca's just mimed eating a tomato to remind.
Well, I didn't want to go while I was thinking.
No, fair enough. And after the ship burning, the Teleri kind of fall away from the story for a while, and that's pretty much the end of them. And the next time we really see them is the War of Wrath, which is the last battle of Beleriand. And that's where Eärendil makes it, who is an apprentice of Círdan the Shipwright, remember? So the ship Vingalot that takes Eärendil to Valinor is a ship built with the advice and the tutelage of a Teleri elf. And so Eärendil makes his way to Valinor and begs the Valar on the errand of the two kindred. So on behalf of men and elves, he asks the Valar to help them against Morgoth. And the Valar go to war. Oh well, they send the elves, the Noldor and the Vanyar to war. And this time, the Teleri agree to carry the Vanyar and Noldor in their ships and send mariners to work it and sail it, but they refuse to fight because of the kinslaying. And spoiler alert, by the time this happens, there's been 2 more kinslayings of elves of Teleri descent, mainly as well. Well, actually, it's Sindar elves who get massacred, so elves of Teleri descent.
How's any left?
Well, there was a lot of them. But yeah, that is pretty much the end. That's the end of the Teleri, the story of the Teleri in Aman in the days of the Silmarillion, because everything we see in like the Lord of the Rings and stuff going forward, apart from Círdan, who's explicitly mentioned, there's not really pure Teleri elves who are like mentioned. It's all like Sindar or Nandor who like mixed in with other types of elves, so we never really talk to pure Teleri elves. I think Celeborn might be Teleri, but I might be making that up. I remember his Quenya name is Teleporno, and I don't know whether it's got the same root. But anyway, there's an excerpt from the Silmarillion to finish off, and it says, "In those days there was a great building of ships upon the shores of the western sea, and thence in many a fleet the Eldar set sail into the west, and came never back to the lands of weeping and war. And when they came into the west, the elves of Beleriand dwelt upon Tol Eressëa, the lonely isle, that looks west and east, whence they might come even to Valinor. They were admitted again to the love of Manwë and the pardon of the Valar, and the Teleri forgave their ancient grief, and the curse was laid to rest." So the last thing to say is that it's probably safe to assume that the Teleri built these ships that took all the elves at the end of the First Age back across to Aman and Valinor. And they were, just like the Vanyar, in the end they were more sensible than the Noldor, because they forgave the grief. Eventually the curse was, the doom of Mandos, the curse was put to rest. They forgave the kinslayings, and the Noldor who returned were able to live peaceful lives, and so were the Teleri, and they were able to heal and move on. And you kind of got to wonder, like, with elves, because they get reincarnated after a certain amount of time anyway. So, is it easier to let go knowing that you're going to see them again eventually?
Yeah, probably.
Well, maybe. But No, that's the Teleri elves, darling. That's them. What, how are you feeling about that? What do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed this one.
How do they stack up to the other elves we've talked about?
I think they're the best.
Yeah.
They're the ones I identify with the most.
The Vanya...
The type of lifestyle.
Yeah, the Vanya were the smartest, right? But you cannot tell me that there is not at least one Teleri cafe. Then
It's just the simple life.
Yeah, I'm all about that cafe
and the
life.
craftsmanship.
Yeah, like you work on your ship, you go for a 6-hour lunch, have coffee. I don't know, do elves have coffee? Maybe. Have coffee.
I bet they have a pumpkin spice latte.
Exactly. I had one of them the other day. I couldn't wait. It's August. I had a pumpkin spice latte the other week.
Yeah, without me.
It was at your mum's cafe.
You've got no loyalty.
It was at your mum's cafe. I walked in, right, and I went behind the counter, and like I turned all the syrups around one by one because I was looking to see if it was there, and it fucking was. But it was beautiful. But no, we'll get our first Starbucks one together because that's the big one. That's the event of the season. And then the first gingerbread of... Someone asked me the other day, they were like, oh, when do you think winter starts? I was like, when do they stop selling pumpkin spice and start selling gingerbread lattes?
Yeah, we always have to have, like, as soon as the drinks come out.
Yeah.
The festive drinks, you have to...
Woo, late stage capitalism.
Tradition.
Yeah, late stage capitalism. Yeah.
I mean, we might not be able to afford it.
Yeah, consumerism.
Like next year, so...
The world's on fire.
Yeah.
Woo.
Enjoy it while you can.
But no, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this one. I enjoy them. They've got a... I don't know, like, I was very upset with the kinslaying. And I was very upset with the ship burning. But Alqualonde is probably one of the key achievements. Not just for what you built, but the life that they had there. You know, and that's just... No massive dramas. The thing is, there's no massive dramas that wasn't brought on by someone else. A lot of the time, you know. Thingol, who was a Teleri and is king of the Sindar, he's a different beast. He dies because of pure fucking hubris. He's a div at the end. Like, he stands in a room full of dwarves who want to kill him and starts talking shit to them. Just completely oblivious to danger. So the Thingol is different. So it's not all Teleri elves. Thingol is different. But we'll cover that at a certain point. But no, I think the next couple of episodes we'll do a couple of easy ones.
Drunk ones.
Just a couple of drunk ones, a couple of just chilling, off the cuff ones.
I wish I'd done a one on Saturday when you got home.
Oh God, I was so drunk. Oh, I have no... I got back home from Edinburgh to Newcastle on Saturday, absolutely wankered. I'd been drinking I'd seen some friends from work, drank all day, and I managed to get back. And the worst thing was, like, I was just sneaking in and out of fringe shows because I just thought it was hilarious. It was, actually. The shows were really good, but I didn't pay for anything. It was class. I did like a Jedi mind trick. I told you, didn't I, on the woman? Yeah. She was like, where's your ticket? I was like, oh, I just went to the toilet. I'm just coming back in. She's like, all right, go and sit down. Gotcha. Alright, but no, that's an end from us. So, wherever you are, whenever you're listening, enjoy the rest of your day. Special shout out to my mate Ewan. He listens to us on a lunchtime when he goes out for his walks.
Aww.
Which is nice, yeah. So I wondered why the numbers had been ticking up. It's him not being able to decide which fucking episode he wants to listen to.
And my mum.
Oh, does your mum listen?
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
I know, I think she finds our voices comforting. And maybe she might learn something about Tolkien's world.
Yeah, well, shout out to Becca's mum. Right. Okay, so I think for the point we're shouting out parents, we need to wrap it up. So, goodbye from me.
And goodbye from Rebecca.
Bye.
Bye.